Greetings, everyone. I'm DonTheCrown, and I want to talk about real quick 3 updates to 3 of my league starters from the past. Now, all of these builds should be 100% viable for Tier 16 content, probably even getting like all the way up to the Maven. We're not really sure how tough a boss it's going to be, but it's probably going to be more mechanics than anything else. And all 3 of these builds are builds that I've league started with in the past. And while some of them have seen a little bit of a nerf or some a little bit bigger of a nerf, all of these I very easily got to tier 16 maps on, and shouldn't be all that much more difficult nowadays. We're going to start off real quick with the Champion Steel build. Now, this definitely did get a little bit of a hefty nerf. Being a champion, of course, Master Metal no longer gives you 2 impales, it gives you 1 impale, and no longer gives you 20% chance to impale. Instead, you get this piddly node that gives you 10% chance, which kind of leaves you in like a weird 90, 110% chance to impale situation. But, you know, you gotta do what you gotta deal with. We also get this area over here, which this is giving us like now chance to impale on one side, whereas the other side is Call of Steel nodes. Now this gives us Call of Steel increased area effect, increased use speed, and then more steel shards, more use speed, more damage. This is all okay. If you have these 2 things together, you have 45% use speed. This might make it feel somewhat alright to not have a good Lord of Steel jewel, but it remains to be seen. Also, the maximum steel shards don't really matter too much, but they can be kind of nice. And I don't really see myself taking this at endgame, mostly because these 2 points, I'm probably going to go and put them into a Lord of Steel jewel instead. Now, this is like the old numbers on here. They did reduce the damage down to, I believe, top end 25%. However, the use speed still goes up to 100%, which lowers our half-second cast all the way to a quarter-second cast. And I think that's kind of a big deal. Otherwise, you're probably looking at like a 0.35 or something. I'm not sure how tough that's going to feel. The only thing that's really nice about this is if we're leveling along and taking these nodes, there's a chance that's going to be hard to get your hands on Lord of Steel, especially early on in the league. And so just taking these nodes at first could help like smooth out the gameplay a little bit. I know some people had said they kind of felt the steel skills were a little bit janky and they like really didn't enjoy it. Well, you can probably use that to get over that. Now, in the very end game here, we're probably going to be using some sort of cluster jewel, which we're going to like cut out nodes for damage other places. And we're going to want to pick up Run Through. Run Through gives you 10% chance to impale. It also gives you some impale effect, gives you increased damage as well. And all of this is just overall kind of nice. This is kind of a very budget version of the cluster jewel. Obviously, ideally, you'd have a third node that's off it also giving you damage, and I just slapped in some generic damage life jewels. And the damage is definitely down from last league. However, it's not like completely out of the ballpark here because if you remember from my video from last league, we had, I think at this point in my like just starter video here, Lancing Steel 417, Lancing Steel 426. So this is kind of comparable with the cluster jewel, but it drops down here to 364 without the cluster. So that's a little bit of a pain. However, I was doing tier 16 maps with a delirium orb on them on the first day of the league using some extremely budget gear. Like I had a Terminus Est, and that was pretty much it. Using a Nomad belt, nothing really mind-blowing on any of these other pieces. You know, maybe some minus mana cost, which is kind of nice. Is this an old ring? This might even be an old ring. Uh, Actually, yeah, this is not an example. This is an example of planning, not the actual gear. But the gear was really, really budget. And this is kind of what we came out at, like actually 800,000 DPS with Shattering Steel at the time. So we're using Terminus Est and like not really a lot of other amazing things. This was actually kind of a nice necklace here in that we had intelligence, We have Flat Fizz and Crit Multi, but I'm pretty sure I picked this up pretty cheaply. And I was like even still using a Praxis at this point while just hopping around here for the mana cost, because getting that Elrion craft pretty early on is kind of a pain in the butt. Also using a Nomad belt, and yeah, just having a grand old time. And so this getting knocked down is going to be a little bit annoying. I haven't actually looked at what this is going to look like, but you have to go and fix your impale chance now, since they have nerfed chance to impale on the champion in general. And so that's why you see such a huge damage loss. It's kind of a little bit annoying because they said that they wanted to call back stats that didn't really matter, and removing chance to impale is kind of a pain. But there are some ways to work around that, both with cluster jewels, with some alt quality, and I'm sure we'll find some other smart ways of dealing with this problem. It's just a little annoying what they did. I'm going to have a POB for all these builds in the comments below, so definitely check this out. I think that I'm probably going to be playing the Lancing Steel version of this, mostly because I think it's going to be absolutely insane for 10 bosses. And the reason for this is because of how Sniper's Mark work. So Sniper's Mark, basically you mark a target, and then at level 20 of the gem, those projectiles will split off to 4 other enemies. And even if we're looking at like a level 16 gem, that's still +4. And it's, maybe it's +4. Yeah, it's +4 once you hit, I think, probably level 10, 12. Yeah, and so that's hitting a lot of enemies at the same time. And it's also like taking your top damage and hitting a bunch of enemies. Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to like throw chain in or something for 10 bosses, but this is definitely extremely powerful. I'm really surprised they didn't nerf this. And if you can somehow get this up to level 21, it goes up to 5 enemies. And that's just a lot of damage, and that makes it really, really strong. Now, of course, when you're looking at these POBs for any of the Lancing Steel builds, you want to make sure that you put in that you're consuming shards. Otherwise, the damage is going to look a little bit weird. But really, at League Start with Lancing Steel having around 2 million or so DPS is pretty ridiculous on almost no gear. And so I think this build is going to be very, very strong. There's also some things that are coming out with this league that I think are going to make the dual wield version of this build a little bit stronger than it was last league. But yeah, we'll talk about that later. Also, harvest crafting is a thing. Harvest crafting is a gigantic boon in general for every build. And so even though the build got nerfed a little bit, harvest crafting naturally brings it up back to being good again. So yeah, this is going to be a pretty solid build for League Start, I believe. Next up, let's talk about Earthshatter Zerk. Now, the Earthshatter Zerk, I played this in Harvest League and was absolutely just blown away with how much freaking damage I was doing, and just how much I was actually just tearing my way right to tier 16s. And the builds pretty much got buffed. It got buffed this league. Now, Earthshatter is getting a little bit of a area of effect nerf, so it could be a little bit worse for single target bossing. They said that you're definitely going to notice the overlap on large bosses, so I'm assuming that you're not going to be able to like, slap into Kitava and explode him anymore. But whether or not that's going to be like shape or DPS affecting, we'll have to see. Earthshatter could probably still be really, really good. There is a chance that they are going to completely nerf Earthshatter just by, like, they're making it so that the spikes spread out farther, and they're making the overlap smaller, and that could, like, do a lot of damage to the build. But honestly, this was so freaking strong that, yeah, I don't even know what to say. This is kind of my damage from Harvest, kind of a couple days in once I got a nice axe. And you can see the damage definitely drops down when I'm using a Hezmana's Bloodlust 1 Chaos axe. But this is what I started tier 16 mapping on. We're at like 1.2 million. And we kind of look at the old tree here. You can see that the damage is basically exactly the same, almost a little bit up. You're going to have a little bit more rage now, seeing how Crave the Slaughter has +10 maximum rage. And that's like really the only big effect that's going to happen to you if you're doing this tree here. Now, I know a lot of people talk to me about Warbringer, and I really just don't like Warbringer. One of the things I don't like about Warbringer is that you're continuously using this to sacrifice rage, and you can only use it to gain rage back if you're below 25 rage. But if you're below 25 rage, that means you're also stunnable all of a sudden. And especially in 10 boss fight, there's probably a lot of things that are going to be coming at you at the same time that can get you stunned. And if you get stunned, you stop moving. If you stop moving, you die. So I'm not a big fan of Warbringer. If you want to go pick that up and get more damage, by all means. I think right now for configuration, we're only using the average damage. So if we like bop this up to max, it'd probably be a lot more effective. I don't even know if we actually have all, yeah, we do have all the right war cries set up right now. But I think this build is going to be extremely strong, as long as they don't nerf Earthshatter too much. And even if they do, we can probably transition into something else that's going to be really, really strong. Zerker altogether is just a very solid ascendancy right now. And this tree here will allow you to kind of go and do a lot of different things with very few alterations. And then last but not least, we're talking about the Zerk Cyclone update. Now, I don't really want to play Cyclone. I haven't played Cyclone since Delirium, but Cyclone is incredibly strong, incredibly smooth, and kind of brainless. And so if that's the type of play you're looking for, then by all means. Now, from the time where I made this video back in the day, I think 3.9, and today, Melee has kind of lost a few survival pieces. Basically, Soul of Steel has been nerfed. Brinksmanship has been nerfed. We kind of like lose reduced damage here a lot. But with Harvest Crafting, I think you're going to be able to make some really insane gear this league. This is looking like 3.2 million DPS with Terminus Est. And this is kind of like an old school chest with the minus mana cost. I pretty much just adapted the POB without adapting the gear too much. So there's definitely a few things you want to change. I'll probably change this in the final copy of this. But there's definitely some nice things in here. But 3.2 million DPS on a Terminus Est is nothing to sneeze at. This was definitely basically where I was at when I was starting to do tier 16s. And was even... I think this was my Delirium character. This was a while ago. And so it's nice to see that this build is kind of held up to the test of time. I'm not a really big fan of going Slayer Cyclone. I don't think that Slayer has gotten really all that much of a buff. I think Zerker and Champion are way better for damage. If you're looking for something that's a little bit more survivable than Zerker, because this tree here is only giving you pure damage. It's not getting Aspect of Carnage to make it worse, but this is all pure damage. There's no real survivability on this tree. And if you want to go Champion and go get Worthy Foe and probably First to Strike, Last to Fall, and Master of Metal, this would be a lot tankier than this, and you probably would have to make very few changes, and would also be very, very strong. So yeah, I'm going to put all of these in the video or the description down below. If you like this kind of stuff, let me know. And I'm going to definitely be rocking my way through the content coming up here with Ritual League. My goal is to kill very early Maven, get a Maven boss kill video out there, get a Maven boss kill guide out there. So I normally do Maven, or I guess end game boss kill services, but it's going to be pretty much be free of charge until I can feel like I can consistently kill the boss easily. And so if you're looking to get your Maven killed, come on by, let me know. I'll be streaming live at twitch.tv/DonTheCrown, and we'll see you over there. How you going?